part of the Venezuelan government campaign against corruption, a hearing was held to present 13 people linked to corruption schemes within several companies in the country. Taiwan's President Yuan was met by supporters and protesters outside a Los Angeles hotel ahead of her meeting with United States House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. And Palestinians demonstrate at the border with Israel, east of the city of Gaza, after Israeli police stormed the Al-Aqsa mosque in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv forces launched airstrikes on Gaza. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. As part of the Venezuelan government campaign and efforts against corruption, a hearing was held on Wednesday to present 13 new detainees linked to corruption schemes within several companies in the country. The arrests were carried out by the National Anti-Corruption Police, and those arrested were linked to three main corruption schemes in different institutions, this being the companies Corporación Venezolana de Guyana, the CVG, and Cartones de Venezuela, along with the judicial power. Among the detainees connected to these corporations were Pedro Maldonado from the CVG, Hugo César Cabezas Bracamontes from Cartones de Venezuela, and Mario Aquino Pisano, who worked as an assistant to the former criminal judicial president of the metropolitan area of Caracas, Cristobal Cornieles. So far, 48 people have been charged with corruption schemes and crimes, as President Nicolas Maduro took the lead in the operation, stating that the full extent of the law will be applied on those who commit these offenses or embezzle the nation's resources. On Tuesday, the Mexican government announced a new nationalization of the electricity industry after purchasing 13 electricity generation plants, which will become part of the public patrimony and will be operated by the Federal Electricity Commission. The measure was presented by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, who also highlighted that the National Infrastructure Fund will be the entity in charge of financing the purchase. The purchase will be completed in the next 5 months and will cost around $6 billion. This action will allow the Federal Electricity Commission to increase its participation in the production of electricity from 39.6% to 55.5% and become the main supplier in the country, which means the definite rescue of a public company. The president emphasized the importance of this operation for the Mexican people.
We are consummating a very important operation, certainly for the benefit of the people of Mexico, and we are very grateful to Iberdrola, its CEO, its global president, for their willingness to reach an agreement. We have had some disagreements, but dialogue can do everything. Dialogue and will then from those differences, from those disagreements. This is something extraordinary. I repeat, something historic.
The president of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, participated on Tuesday in his first promotion ceremony for the general officers of the armed forces of his current term. At this ceremony, the Navy promoted an African-American woman to general for the first time. In total, 56 new military personnel were promoted to the highest positions in the three forces: general in the case of the Army, admiral in the Navy, and brigadier within the Air Force. Among the promoted military officers was Maria Cecilia Barbosa, who reached the rank of Rear Admiral or Admiral in the Navy, the first black female general officer in the Navy. The event was attended by the Minister of Defense, José Múcio Monteiro, in addition to the commanders of the three forces. In Brazil on Wednesday, authorities report 2 separate violent incidents against learning facilities in the southern state of Santa Catarina and in Rio de Janeiro. According to authorities, at least 4 children have been killed and 4 others injured in an attack at a daycare center in Blumenau, Santa Catarina, after a 25-year-old man entered the Cantinho Bom Pastor daycare center with an axe, attacked minors, and then surrendered to the authorities. Meanwhile, in the Rio Mare community, 2 officers of the Kabiruas, or Skulls, the Special Police Force Battalion, threw small gas bombs inside a schoolyard where an Easter activity was to take place for the children of the favela. Representatives of the Workers' Party in Rio de Janeiro condemned the acts against the school community and demanded an answer from Bolsonaro-aligned Rio de Janeiro Governor Claudio Castro for disproportionate use of force. Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen was met by supporters and protesters outside a Los Angeles hotel ahead of her meeting with United States House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Tsai traveled through the U.S. on her way home for a state visit to two of Taiwan's former diplomatic allies, Guatemala and Belize. While in the U.S., the Taiwanese head of state will talk to McCarthy, along with other U.S. officials from both political parties, at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in a closed-door meeting before making public statements. The meeting was prompted or has prompted a strong rejection from China, which has called it a provocation. On Wednesday, China launched a special operation of joint patrol and inspection in the central and northern parts of the Taiwan Strait. The Fujian Maritime Safety Administration said in a statement that the three-day operation is part of the administration's annual patrol work plan and involves multiple maritime enforcement vessels led by Z Patrol 06, a large maritime patrol vessel deployed in the Taiwan Strait. It aims to secure the navigation environment and order along some important and busy ship routes, handle ship violations, and prevent commercial and fishing vessel collisions. The operation is held hours ahead of a meeting between Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen and the United States House Speaker Kevin McCarthy in the U.S.
Operation Haichung 06 is the flagship commanding the law enforcement forces of all parties to act in a unified manner. We focus on patrolling and securing the navigation environment and order of ships in the central and northern waters of the Taiwan Strait, and ensuring the safety of passenger ships in terms of three minor links in transport, trade, and postal services.
Let's take a short break. But first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. French President Emmanuel Macron and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen arrived in China on Wednesday for a three-day state visit that will include discussions of bilateral and international issues, such as the conflict in Ukraine. This is the latest European leaders' visit to China since Beijing dropped its zero-COVID restrictions in December 2022. In this sense, Macron's visit is being billed as an attempt to engage with his Chinese counterpart amid deteriorating EU-China relations due to widening rifts over Russia's special military operation in Ukraine. Since China adopted a neutral position on the conflict, Beijing has increased its call for a dialogue and a peaceful solution to the conflict, as well as a multipolar world order in a bid to counteract the United States' hegemony. And speaking at a gathering of the French community in Beijing ahead of a meeting with China's leader Xi Jinping on Thursday, Macron said France will seek to work with China towards peace and stability in Ukraine.
China has reaffirmed its commitment to the United Nations Charter. Territorial integrity and sovereignty of nations are part of it. And I believe that defending them also means working together and trying to find a path to peace. China has proposed a peace plan, and we have welcomed it. But we agree with it in its entirety? No. But it is interesting. It shows willingness to commit to resolving the conflict. And so, if it is not a peace plan, it is a desire to have responsibility to try to build a path towards peace, and I hope to be able to participate in initiatives that are useful to the Ukrainian population.
Meanwhile, protests continued across France against the President Emmanuel Macron's pension reform plan. Opponents of the pension reform blocked the Nantes highway, causing 15 kilometers long traffic jams. France's largest union, the General Confederation of Labor, confirmed that around 2,000 people demonstrated in the city against the government's measure, under which the legal retirement age will be progressively raised by 3 months a year from 62 to 64 by 2030, and a guaranteed minimum pension will be introduced. In this regard, French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne met with the trade unions representatives to try and re-establish dialogue amid the crisis caused by the pension reform and ahead of a new national day of strikes and demonstrations. For their part, union representatives stated that after the meeting that it had been a failure after Borne refused to withdraw the bill.
Finally, we call on the French people to come out in force to join the numerous marches tomorrow in Paris and throughout France to say for the 11th time no to this unfair and brutal reform. It is clearly a failure when the Prime Minister won't even allow a way into that discussion, so yes, it's a failure. It was useful for us to reiterate our various proposals, to reiterate that this reform was not fair, that this reform could not be accepted by all our fellow citizens. But unfortunately, the Prime Minister said that for him it was necessary, that it was important. So the meeting ended like that.
The Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni received on Wednesday the Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez at the Palazzo Chigi in Rome. This is the first bilateral meeting between the two leaders of major southern European countries. The heads of state aim to seek a consensus on issues that will be the subject of debate and negotiations during the Spanish presidency of the European Union, among them the pact on migration and asylum that the bloc has committed to approve before next year's elections to the European Parliament. Sánchez hopes to know Meloni's position on issues such as the reinforcement of the open strategic autonomy and competitiveness and the reform of the electricity market. In Italy, a Doctors Without Borders ship on Tuesday rescued more than 400 asylum seekers in the Mediterranean Sea next to the coast of Malta after receiving a distress call. Doctors Without Borders reported that after the difficult operation, one person had to be evacuated to Malta as an emergency because they were unconscious at the time of the rescue due to severe dehydration after 4 days at sea and the last 2 without food and water. The migrants were set sail from Libya near Benghazi on Saturday, April the 1st, and come from Syria, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Egypt, Somalia, and Sri Lanka, the NGO explained. Shortly after the operation, the Italian authorities communicated that a Navy vessel will take care of 100 asylum seekers to bring them to a port in Sicily, while the GEO Barents ship was authorized to disembark the remaining 339 in the port of Brindisi. On Wednesday, a heavy police presence lingers outside the home of Scotland's former First Minister Nicola Sturgeons, as Scotland's ruling party faced fresh turmoil following Sturgeons' husband's arrest as part of a police investigation into financial irregularities. Peter Murrell was chief executive of the Scottish National Party for nearly 25 years until he quit last month. In a statement, Scotland's police said they had taken a 58-year-old man into custody for questioning over the funding and finances of the Scottish National Party. The police raided several properties besides Sturgeon's home in Glasgow. Murrell has long faced questions about the alleged diversion of $750,000 in donations from his party intended to support a campaign for Scottish independence. And on Wednesday, Russian authorities announced that the renminbi or yuan displays the US dollars as the most circulating foreign currency in the Russian market. According to Artyom Tuzov, director of the analysis of financial corporation Evo Partners, there is also a possibility that the China's currency will exceed the joint volumes of the US dollars and the euro by the end of this year. The increase in the yuan's role in the Russian economy comes after the dollar and euro accounts of major Russian banks were blocked in February 2022. Although the circulation of the Asian giant's currency in the domestic economy has not yet spread, analysts point out that this circulation is increasing month by month. TeleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat. Dial 461 and enjoy our Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Palestinians demonstrated on Wednesday at the border with Israel, east of the city of Gaza, after Israeli police stormed the Al-Aqsa mosque in Jerusalem, and the Israeli army launched several airstrikes against positions of the Islamic resistance movement Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The Arab League is said to hold an emergency meeting to discuss an Israeli police raid on the Al-Aqsa mosque in Jerusalem that left at least 12 Palestinians injured, while in the streets of Gaza, demonstrators called on the Palestinian people to defend and protect the mosque. The occupation forces' crackdown on Palestinian worshippers has sparked a military exchange of rockets, and airstrikes prompting violence at the Jewish Passover coincides with the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. The Palestinian Minister of Civil Affairs, Hussein al-Sheikh, condemned the actions, stating that the level of brutality demands urgent international action. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has plunged into escalating violence since Netanyahu's right-wing government came to power. So far this year, at least 91 Palestinians have been killed in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Kenyan President, William Ruto, met on Tuesday with his Rwandan counterpart, Paul Kagame, to discuss the security situation in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo and the protests in Nairobi. The meeting was part of Ruto's official two-day visit to Kigali on the invitation of President Paul Kagame, in what is also the Kenyan leader's first visit to Rwanda since they came to power last September. According to a statement from the Kenyan State House, the agenda of the trip includes deliberations on topics of mutual interest and cooperation, such as the integration projects of the Northern Corridor as the main supply line for imports out of the region to Rwanda through Kenya. So far, Ruto has met with leaders from Uganda, Democratic Republic of Congo, South Sudan, Ethiopia, Tanzania, and Burundi, in keeping with what he calls a pursuit of good neighborness.
And I want to thank the heads of state of EAC for providing leadership in this area, and we are working together to see to it that we stabilize Eastern DRC so that Congo can have peaceful elections and they can continue to enjoy their country. It is not a question of who is right and who is wrong. In times like this, you have to put your house in order. And as president, I owe it to the people of Kenya to provide leadership.
Now we move on to other topics. In India, rescue operations have resumed on Wednesday after a snow avalanche killed 7 tourists, injured another 13, and 20 other people had to be rescued. Authorities resumed operations at 8 a.m. local time on Wednesday in the state of Sikkim, north of the country. The Disaster Management Office said that rescue teams had to leave the area yesterday evening due to harsh weather. Another 350 tourists and 80 vehicles were rescued after roads were cleared of snow. Authorities said that despite the resumption of the rescue operations, there may be no more missing persons. The avalanche happened in a tourist hotspot near the Nathula border area, a mountain pass at an altitude of more than 4,000 meters connecting Indian Sikkim with neighboring China. And tens of thousands of workers and farmers from all over India stormed the capital on Wednesday against the unpopular policies of the government of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Farm workers from different states of the country have arrived in New Delhi for the Sangharsh rally. In addition, some 300 academics, actors, writers, journalists, and veterans have pledged their support to the protest. Convened by the All India Kisan Sabha parties, the Center of Indian Trade Unions, and the All India Agricultural Workers Union, demonstrators are demanding relief for inflation, fair prices for their crops, removal of anti-labor legislation, employment and minimum wages increase, among other issues. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.